Hey everybody, Psychosaurus is here. Welcome back to Age of Empires Online. And today we're gonna talk about another thing today. But before I start, god dang it, guys, come on, find the angry old man. Come on, you don't want the legendary advisor? Fine, we can make a deal. Come on, it can be coins, it can be, I don't know, some specific piece of gear. Obviously something more rare if you want to. I mean, it's possible if you want to. Maybe not even I know, who knows, but oh boy, you still have a chance to get that one highly rewarding quest. Come on, if you find him there. Yay, 2 legendary advisors. Or if you don't want it, can be coins, can be some very rare item if you want to. We can talk about it, obviously. But let's get back to the business and the point of this video. And that is, I want to talk about specializing your units. Now, you might be wondering, what am I talking about? And we're gonna go into this right away. So, as you know, we have a lot of pieces of gear. And in general, you want to put something like damage, health on your units. Especially the main go-to units. But sometimes you wanna specialize your unit against some specific situations. For example, a spearman. Let's use spearman as an example. You want that unit to sometimes do extra damage to cavalry units. Like you wanna make it better against cavalry than it already is. What can you do about that? Well, obviously you can pick some specific pieces of gear for that. And this is what I mean by specialization. You wanna make the unit better against, or rather at specific scenarios. Like I said, spearman, making it much better against cavalry. Another example could be anti-ranged units such as slingers, pelta, skirmishers. Units like that, you can specialize them even more against ranged units. And so on, so on. Obviously, we have a lot of examples to go that we could go through, but that's not the point of the video. I'm just gonna talk about the specialization. Now, first, what stats could be considered to be specialized, or rather specializing stats? So, as you know, we have some stats that can be used in all situations. The general stats, and like I said, it's damage, it's health. To a certain degree, could be considered as well the bonus damage protection. It could be maximum range for your ranged units. Like I said, stats that are useful always. And then we have those specializing that are good, let's say, against some specific units. It can be at some specific situations. And that could be like bonus damage. Remember the spearman? That could be bonus damage against cavalry, as an example. Or it could be some specific armor. And again, like with the spearman, it could be cavalry armor. You want to specialize it more against cavalry, then it's bonus damage plus the armor. That can be useful there as well. Now, I mentioned the bonus damage protection as the general stat, but to a certain degree, it's also specializing stat. And to explain it, why it could be general and why it could be specializing, well, in general, remember there are some quests where the enemy units have some multipliers. You know, quests like Marian, quests like, I don't know, Rakotis quests of like Lower Nile, or the Village of Sighs, could be Valley of Kings. In those quests you can see enemy units having some passive additional multipliers, and in those scenarios the bonus damage protection is good in general. But then we have also quests where the enemy does not have multipliers, such as the quest in Rome. Fabi, only a northern town, come together. In those quests, the enemy does not have those passive multipliers. So in that case, it's rather specializing, because if you put, let's say, bonus damage protection on your infantry unit, what are you actually protecting it from? It's gonna be like the enemy bowman, it's gonna be the enemy legionary, those two units mainly, could be Scorpios as well. So you're like specializing it against those specific units. Okay, I hope this made up for an explanation why I consider it general and specializing both at the same time. Now, yeah, we have some pieces of gear that are generally good and then specializing. And then there are also pieces of gear that are like heavily specializing, and by that I mean they give you a lot of stats that specialize in specific situations. For example, and again with the Spearman, the heavy spear of Siavash gives you a lot of cavalry damage, which is nice, right? Now obviously specializing items have one small disadvantage, and that is you're trading the generally good stat for a little bit more of the specialized stat. So your unit can suddenly become much stronger in that situation, but it will become weaker in all of those other situations. And I've mentioned the Speedman, and I made up in the build in the unit builder, but let's take a look at those heavy spears. Heavy spear, okay. So what's like the most likely used spear that we can consider? Could be, I can find it, Pharaoh's Spear of Destiny. It's just damage. In general, really good spear. What does this give you advantage? Obviously, you do a lot of damage to everything. Whatever your unit is fighting against, this spear is gonna be great. Now then, we can consider some more specialized item, like for example, the Heavy Spear of Sacrifice. Now obviously, we are losing some amount of the damage. And as you can see, if we take the average values, we go from 82.4% to 62.5%. So losing 20% damage in general. Now we can obviously compare this, how much damage we are actually losing here. So let's go, or rather I should say how much slower your unit is gonna be in comparison to the Pharaoh Spear at killing the stuff in general. So if we do this, now we can see it's about 11% slower. So that means it's gonna take about 11-12% more time to kill stuff in general. That means like, hey, you're using your spearman against infantry. If you would use the Pharaoh Spear, it would take you, let's say, 10 hits instead of 11, just for an example. So that's the difference we're talking about here. But obviously, we are getting the cavalry bonus damage with the Heavy Spear of Sacrifice. So if we clear this, go 1.625 times, again we're gonna use the average value, so 23.7%. You can see the damage is going up by almost 20% against cavalry. And if we divide this by the base value here, hey, we're killing cavalry 10% faster. This is about 10% faster if I remember. So against cavalry, we're doing 10% more damage with the heavy speed of sacrifice, which is nice. Hey, instead of killing it in, what is it, like 11 hits, I'm killing the cavalry in 10 hits. Again, similar example. So it's a trade-off, obviously. I am killing everything 11% slower, but I'm killing the cavalry 10% faster. And also remember, this spear offers the armor as well, so your unit will survive even longer against cavalry. So that's a pretty good trade-off, right? When you're trying to specialize the unit against cavalry, for example. And this is the main comparison I will make, okay? You're trading the general stat, like here you're trading 20% of the damage from the spear, but you will be doing much better against cavalry. Not only in the matter of damage, but also survive longer. And you saw it's 10% more damage, but also your units will survive longer. 30% more damage needed to kill your unit. That's a pretty good trade-off. And just like I've mentioned, the heavy speed of Sea Avalanche being too heavily specializing item, you can see we have the bonus against cavalry going 82%, but in general we have only 27.3% damage plus the crit chance. Let's exclude the crit chance from this, but yeah, if we compare this again with the Pharaoh Spear here, so let's clear this. So 1.273. Why am I gonna include the crit chance? Yes, let's include it. Because it's, oh sorry. Okay. Oops. Try this. That is okay. Divide this by. Okay, how much slower are we? That's pretty huge, right? 27, 26, 27% slower. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage wasted right here. Now, obviously, I'm considering like, hey, we already have the base damage, so that might be like, why does it look such a small value? That's why. Because when you imagine, hey, I have like 1.3, so 130% versus 180, that's like 50% difference, okay? But when you consider it of what value, yeah, that's why it looks such a small difference. But remember, this is you're killing stuff much slower in general. So this is infantry, this is buildings, that's worth mentioning. Buildings, that's ranged units. Usually you don't use spearmen, but in some situations, hey, you're attacking ranged units as well. But yeah, infantry, buildings, ranged units, maybe even siege, you can see that. Okay, we're losing quite a huge amount of damage here. But what do we get? We get a huge bonus against cavalry. What was it? 1.273 times 1.051 times, and we're getting 1.82%. Okay. So this is what we're getting against cavalry, and you can see this is 143% against cavalry. So that means in comparison to the Pharaoh Spear, hey, we do 60% more damage. If we again compare the value, how much faster is this? It's 33% faster. That's a pretty huge difference, right? Now this becomes quite a huge difference. But like I said, you're killing everything else. And this is very important to mention. And I said it, the buildings. Remember when you're playing the spearman only quest, usually you're finding a lot of cavalry units. But remember, you also have to destroy the buildings. And imagine you have to get through the walls. And those walls just have like 20,000 health. Can you imagine how much slower it is with the heavy speed of Siavash than, let's say, Sacrifice or the Pharaoh? That's a huge difference, believe me. And this is why I kind of dislike the Siavash. However, you can still use that speed. It's my opinion. I don't like it, but as you can see, it does a lot of damage to the cavalry. You saw it. It's like 40% more, and not multiplied but added in comparison to the Sacrifice, with like half the amount of damage dealt to units in general. So yeah, I wanted to show you this comparison. So I hope this kind of explains like the trade-off of the generally good stats for the specialized stats. It's a trade-off. Your units will become worse in general, but they will become much better in those specific scenarios. This can be worth in some specific situations. For example, those spearmen. I've mentioned spearmen and I think they are ideal example of this. And let's get to the gear pieces. Okay, we got the spears. This is the Siavash, right? Yeah, it is. I did it correctly. But yeah, we got the spears using the Alexander, Master, Assassin's Gauntlets, and then the specific spears I picked. And as you can see in the stats, generally the best damage you have here, more specialized, slightly less damage. As you can see, it's 7 DPS, but also more than 20% damage against cavalry, plus with some extra armor over here. So this is the middle path, obviously, still generally good. As you can see, the difference is not that huge, but also becoming better against the cavalry. So I think this is a great example of the middle way. And then we have the generally weaker, I mean 5% here, what is this, like 48 DPS? I mean that's 10 DPS difference over here if I include the crit, obviously. Okay, I got a little bit confused here. It's crit damage here. Oh my god, those stats added here. Oh god, I need to pay attention to these. But yeah, this is like 48, so that means like 10 DPS difference from the heavy speed of Sacrifice, but much bigger bonus against cavalry with the lack of armor, obviously. So yeah, this is heavily specialized, middle path, and then generally good spearmen. As you can see, those numbers, yeah, those differences are quite obvious. Again, just to make it sure it's understandable, hey, specializing will cost you some generally good stats, but it can be worth in some specific situations. And like I said, spearmen against cavalry, you're playing spearmen only quests, most of them will send only cavalry against you. You play the liberating Memphis from Rakotis. That's the one where you find a lot of camels, elephants. So yeah, specializing there can be good. But remember, you also will have to destroy the buildings with your spearmen. So I would suggest going the middle path, but obviously I cannot stop you from doing either of the paths. It's your decision. Whichever you prefer the most, you should follow that. Whichever you like the most, it's your choice. Go with it. Obviously, it's best to try out for yourself which you like the most. So try out, see for yourself. And yeah, I use the spearmen mainly as an example, but we could also include units such as slingers or skirmishers or peltas, the anti-ranged ranged units. You could specialize those against ranged units. And obviously, you could go general stats as well. That can work as well. That's fine. You can do that. You can go typical bowman like Toxotes, the Babylonian bowman, Persian bowman. You can specialize those against infantry. You can specialize those against cavalry for some reason if you want to. Obviously, you have so many options. Just remember, you're trading the generally good stats for specialized stats. Okay, I hope this explained the basic idea behind specialized stats. Now, when is this good, or rather, when should you prefer the specialized stats over the general stats? That's what I want to explain a little bit. So, this is just from my point of view. You might have different opinion about this, so remember, hey, it's just my opinion. But generally good stats. Hey, you're using this unit. It's your main go-to unit. You'll be using it as your main unit in the quest. Like, what could be a good example? Like, hey, we're playing Celts. We're using champions. So generally good stats will be a good idea. Why? Because you will be fighting everything. And you will be dealing with everything. Doesn't matter. You will need all those generally good stats. So health, damage, could be useful to have some movement speed as well because hey, they're slow. That can help them in some scenarios as well. So yeah, generally good stats on your main go-to unit. Doesn't matter. Is it gonna just tank, soak the damage, or is it gonna do a lot of damage? Doesn't matter. Generally good stats over there. That's my preference. Now, for specialization, I have to split this into two parts, which is the heavy and the light specialization. Now, for the light specialization, I mentioned the spearman. I prefer the heavy speed of sacrifice. I like it a lot. I just prefer when the unit does better against the cavalry, and it is still capable of doing some damage in general. So it can take out buildings. That can work. Okay, and it's so I would say, hey, you're using that unit. You are doing a quest where hey, specializing against this type of unit is a good idea here because that's what you will be fighting against mainly. So, for example, spearman only quest, using spearman only, you will most likely see cavalry units. In most of those quests, it's cavalry only, or like 90%. So specializing there is a good idea. Otherwise, hey, I want to use this unit and I just want to make it slightly better against those units. But I will combine it with these units so those can take out these units. For example, hey, I can mix my spearman with something like Toxotes, and I can specialize the Toxotes more against infantry. Obviously just the light specialization because Toxotes can do a lot of damage. But yeah, if I specialize them more against infantry, I can specialize my spearmen against cavalry, and hey, we're taking out two unit types now. That's pretty good. This can work, okay? It's just general idea. Now for some heavy specialization. Now this is quite rare, but even that can happen. And I think this is something you do on units that you rarely use, but if you use them they can be quite useful in that one scenario. quite heavy. And I was talking about the heavy speed of Siavash. If you wanna use your spearman mainly against cavalry, and especially cavalry only, then obviously the heavy speed of Siavash is for you. Similarly, I could talk about slingers or anti-ranged ranged units in general, because we have the summer cloth armor with bonus against ranged units. If you want to specialize them even more, hey, you can use that cloth armor instead of divine high viziers, and suddenly you do more damage against ranged units. And this is something I personally prefer on something like the Norse skirmisher, because honestly that unit otherwise does nothing, because that base damage it does is very low. So why just not make it better against what it's supposed to do, and that is countering ranged units. And honestly, it can do a lot of damage to ranged units. It's quite surprising how high it can go. I mean, you see Slinger, it has like 7 base damage. Ooh, that's not that good, but then it suddenly has like 6 times against ranged units, and we're like, that can work. So just like an example, hey, unit you use rarely, but there might be a scenario where it can be very useful. Hey, I can use that heavy specialization. I can make it so much better. I can counter those chariots with just 4 skirmishers. Why not? Just an example, okay? But yeah, so use health damage in general. If you want some bonus damage or armor, you can specialize those units. And honestly, using bonus edge protection is still good, either if it's just specializing or in general. I mean, it's still something in between for me. So, but yeah, I hope I did my best to explain the specializing stats, how good they can be, but remember the trade-offs. So if you obviously if you want to use them, remember you're losing some damage in general. Now, I think I should also mention that there are units where you can use these specializing items, and honestly it's the only and the best choice that you can make. And right now there are 2 unit types coming to my mind, and you might actually have remembered those, and that would be the battering rams. Let's do this. Ramhead. If you want the best damage output, what are you gonna use? Are you gonna use the Athenian Ironforged Ramhead or the Ramhead of Knum? Now, if you know what the Rams do, then you know the Ramhead of Knum is the correct answer here. You always pick the Ramhead of Knum over the Athenian Ironforged Ramhead for your battering rams. Why is that? Because battering rams can attack buildings only. Well, the only exception being siege tower, but you don't really want load the units into the siege tower, because it's kinda losing the potential of the unit. You will not get the amount of damage as if the unit was outside, unless you have some really weak unit, like for example the shield bearer. That could be useful, but yeah, battering rams, siege towers, you use them mainly against buildings. Why would you pick this and get like 85% damage when you can get this and get over 100% damage against buildings? That's one example. Another good example, fire pots. Okay, why would you use, I mean, for movement speed, okay, but let's compare it with this Dragonfire Flask. Why would you use this when you can go Hatshepsut? 5 ships. What will you use 5 ships against? most likely Navy. Then it's obvious this is the winner, because this is more than 100% damage. Second one, against buildings. Okay, this could be the winner, but remember, fire ships do crush damage. So building armor does nothing against them, so you already do good amount of damage. So yeah, losing this small amount of damage over here, that seems like a good trade-off if you ask me. And against buildings, like fire ships, okay, like let's say you're playing Norse, I can get that. You don't have anything bad against buildings from the sea. You can drop your units with your longships, but okay, from the sea, not really. But the other ships usually have the siege boat, so dealing with buildings shouldn't be a problem for those. So yeah, a ship suit over this one, like why would you pick this one? I would look at you and be like, dude, think about it a little bit. Just look at it. Okay, I think these are good examples. I don't know if I could think of anything else. These are the two that come right into my mind. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this. Hope you learned something. I tried my best. Please like the video if you enjoy this, if you have learned something. If you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, remember to find the angry old man. And yeah, watch my other videos. There's a lot of them. Okay, this was Psychosaurus. I'll see you next time. Bye.